My name is Ethan Miller, and a few years ago, I was 28 years old. Working as an automotive mechanic right here in Detroit, Michigan, my life revolved around the rumble of engines, the scent of oil, and the satisfying clunk of a wrench tightening a bolt. Most days, you'd find me under a hoist, covered in grease, humming along to whatever classic rock station was playing on the shop radio. I loved my job. It was honest work, and I was good at it. When I wasn't at the shop, I was usually tinkering with my own projects in my small garage behind my rented house. It wasn't much, but it was mine, and it had enough space for a project. Car and all my tools. My pride and joy at the time was my 2008 Ford F150. That truck was more than just a vehicle. It was a symbol of my independence, my workhorse, and my escape. I'd spent countless hours detailing it, making sure the paint gleamed and the interior was spotless. When I finally sold the old beat-up sedan I'd been driving, I decided to treat the F-1502 to something special, a new set of wheels. I envisioned it riding high, looking aggressive, a true reflection of the power under its hood. This is where Marcus Thorne enters the picture. Marcus was a smooth talker, the kind of guy who could sell ice to an Eskimo, and he had a reputation around town for flipping parts. He always had what you needed, or at least he claimed to. Our relationship was purely transactional, limited to a few brief encounters where I'd bought some used parts for customer cars. He was older than me, probably in his late 30s, with a slicked-back haircut and a permanent smirk that always made me feel a little uneasy. He always dressed a bit too well for someone who spent his days rummaging through junk parts, and his eyes had a way of darting around, never quite meeting yours. He had a way of making you feel like he was doing you a favor, even when you were paying him good money. I didn't like him, but he often had the parts I needed for my customers, so I tolerated him. I had a couple of good friends who were always in my corner. There was Sarah Jenkins, my best friend since high school. She ran a small coffee shop downtown, a cozy place with mismatched furniture and the best espresso in the city. Sarah was sharp, witty, and always knew how to call me out when I was being an idiot. She was like a sister to me, always ready with a sarcastic remark or a comforting word, depending on what I needed. She'd seen me through thick and thin, and I trusted her more than almost anyone. She had a way of looking at situations that was both practical and deeply empathetic, which was a rare combination. Then there was Old Man Fitzwilliam, my mentor. He owned the auto shop where I worked, a gruff, grizzled veteran of the automotive world. Fitzwilliam had grease under his fingernails that seemed permanently etched there, and a wealth of knowledge that spanned decades. He'd taught me everything I knew about engines and life, often with a well-placed kick to the shins or a mumbled piece of advice that was surprisingly profound. He was a man of few words, but every one of them carried weight. He had a stern exterior, but a kind heart, and he always looked out for his employees, treating us more like family than just workers. He had a sixth sense for trouble, and often just a look from him was enough to tell me I was heading down the wrong path. My days were pretty routine back then. I'd wake up early, grab a quick breakfast, and head to the shop. The mornings were usually busy, with cars lined up for oil changes, tire rotations, and general maintenance. Afternoons were for the bigger jobs, engine diagnostics, transmission repairs, things that required more time and focus. I enjoyed the challenge, the puzzle of figuring out what was wrong and how to fix it. My hands were my livelihood, and I took pride in their calloused strength. Evenings were usually spent in my garage, tinkering with my own projects or just unwinding with a cold beer. Sometimes Sarah would swing by, bringing me a coffee or just sitting on a crate, chatting while I worked. Life was simple, predictable, and for the most part, good. I was making a living doing what I loved, and I had good people around me. The idea for the wheels started innocently enough. I was scrolling through Kijiji one evening, looking for some minor upgrades for the F-150, when I stumbled upon an ad. That stopped me cold. There they were, a set of polished chrome wheels, beefy and aggressive, exactly what I'd pictured for my truck. They looked brand new, despite being listed as used, and the price was decent, $1,000. $1,000 was a significant chunk of change for me, but I figured it was worth it for the look I was going for. I knew a fair bit about cars, but trucks, especially lifted ones, were a bit outside my usual expertise. I'd done basic maintenance on trucks, sure, but I hadn't messed with suspension or wheel fitment on modified vehicles. So, I did my due diligence, or at least what I thought was due diligence. I sent a message to the seller, who turned out to be Marcus Thorne. "Those wheels look awesome," I typed. "Just wondering, will they fit a stock height 2008 F150, no lift, just standard suspension?" Marcus replied almost immediately, his message bubbling with false enthusiasm. "Absolutely, my man. They came off a stock F150 just like yours. Perfect fit, no rubbing, no issues whatsoever. You won't need anything else?" His assurance, so quick and confident, put me at ease. He was a dealer, right? He should know. I figured he wouldn't lie about something so basic. Plus, the price was good, $1,000. It was a lot, but for those wheels, it felt like a steal if they truly fit. I arranged to meet him that evening. When I pulled up to his cluttered yard, Marcus was already there, leaning against a beat-up pickup truck, a wide grin plastered on his face. He gestured dramatically at the wheels, which were neatly stacked against a shed. They gleamed under the setting sun, even more impressive in person. "See, told ya. Perfect for your truck," he said, his voice slick and smooth. "You won't find a better deal anywhere." I circled the wheels, admiring them, a little bit of excitement bubbling up inside me. I was already picturing my F-150 with these bad boys on, cruising down Woodward Avenue. I didn't have a jack I fully trusted to lift a heavy truck and swap out the wheels myself, not yet anyway. I was planning on investing in a proper hydraulic jack soon, but for now, I decided I'd take it to a tire shop the next day. It would be a small extra cost, but worth it for the peace of mind. I handed over the $1,000 in crisp bills I'd saved up, feeling a pang of satisfaction mixed with the usual buyer's remorse that comes with any large purchase. Marcus counted the money quickly, his eyes narrowing slightly as he did. Then, just as quickly, the smirk returned. "Thanks, man, you're gonna love these." He shook my hand, his grip surprisingly weak, and then disappeared back into his house, leaving me with the wheels and a sense of impending upgrade. I loaded them into the bed of my F-150, already imagining the transformation. I drove home a little lighter in the wallet, but excited about the prospect of my truck finally looking exactly how I wanted it to. The next morning, I woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. I called up a local tire shop, a place I'd heard good things about, and explained I needed new wheels mounted and balanced. They told me to bring the truck in later that afternoon. I spent the morning at work, finishing up a tricky transmission repair, and then drove straight to the tire shop. The new wheels still rattling gently in the back, I pulled into the bay, feeling a mix of anticipation and eagerness. The mechanic, a young guy named Leo, came over and greeted me. "All right, man, let's get these babies on," he said, looking at the wheels with an appreciative nod. "Nice choice." I handed him my keys and headed to the waiting area, settling into a surprisingly comfortable chair and flipping through an old magazine. I imagined it would take about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, tops. I was already planning my route home, thinking about how I'd show off the new look to Sarah and Fitzwilliam. About 45 minutes later, my phone rang. It was the tire shop. My heart sank a little. Never a good sign when they call you earlier than expected. "Hey, Ethan." Leo's voice sounded a little hesitant, a little apologetic. "Look, we got a bit of a problem here." "Oh, really? What's up?" I tried to keep my voice light, but a knot was forming in my stomach. "Well, these wheels, they're not gonna fit your truck as is." "What do you mean, not gonna fit?" I asked, my voice rising slightly. "The guy I bought them from said they were a perfect fit for a stock F-150. Yeah? Well, he was either misinformed or not being entirely honest," Leo said, his voice flat. "The offset on these is way too aggressive for a stock suspension. They're gonna rub like crazy. To make these work, you'd need at least a 2-inch lift, maybe even 3, and some pretty thick spacers just to clear the brake calipers. Even then, you'd probably have issues with the fenders." My stomach dropped. A 2-inch lift. Spacers. That was hundreds, maybe $1,000 more, plus the labor, just to make these wheels fit. And even then, it wasn't guaranteed. I felt a surge of anger, hot and immediate. Marcus Thorne had lied to me, flat out. He'd seen a novice, someone who admitted they didn't know much about truck modifications, and he'd taken advantage. "So, there's no way to put them on without all that?" I asked, my voice tight. "Not safely, no. And honestly, it would look pretty terrible." You'd have wheels sticking out past your fenders like crazy. Plus, it'd put a lot of stress on your wheel bearings. Leo explained patiently. Used to delivering bad news about mismatched parts, I thanked him, told him I'd be right over, and hung up, my hand shaking slightly. I walked out to the bay, my eyes scanning for my F150. It was still sitting on the hoist, the factory wheels looking even smaller and more pathetic next to the massive chrome beasts leaning against a wall. See, Leo pointed to the inside of one of the chrome wheels, then to a point on my truck's fender. Well, look at this offset. It's designed for a much wider stance, probably a truck with a wider axle or a full-on lift kit. Your suspension components would be grinding against the inner barrel of the wheel with every turn. You'd be tearing up your tires and your truck. Stared at the wheels, then at my truck, then back at the wheels. $1,000 down the drain. I felt like an idiot, a complete and utter fool. I, an automotive mechanic, had been played by Marcus Thorne of all people. The anger simmered, a low, dangerous hum in my chest. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. All right, Leo, thanks for being honest. Can you just put my old wheels back on? No problem, man, he said, giving me a sympathetic look. Sorry about this. I drove home that evening, my F-150 looking exactly as it had before. But I felt a million miles away from normal. The chrome wheels, now just a painful reminder of my gullibility, sat deflated in the truck bed. I pulled into my garage, the quiet hum of the engine the only sound. I got out, walked over to the wheels, and kicked one, a hollow thud echoing in the empty space. It didn't make me feel any better. My first instinct was to call Marcus. I pulled out my phone, my fingers trembling slightly as I found his number. He answered on the second ring, his voice cheerful, as if he hadn't just swindled me out of $1,000. Hey Marcus, it's Ethan Miller, about those wheels I bought from you yesterday. Oh yeah, the sick ones. Hope you're enjoying them, man. His voice was dripping with fake joviality. No, I'm not enjoying them, Marcus. They don't fit my truck, not even close. The tire shop said I'd need a Tunschlift and spacers, and even then they might not work right. You told me they'd fit a stock F150. There was a beat of silence on the other end, then a slight shift in his tone. The cheerfulness evaporated, replaced by a defensive edge. Look, man, I told you what I knew. They came off a stock F150. Maybe your truck's different or something. My truck is a standard 2008 F150, just like yours was supposed to be. You flat out lied to me, Marcus. I paid you $1,000 based on your word. My voice was rising, my anger starting to boil over. Hey man, easy there, he snapped, his voice now entirely cold. I already spent that money, bro, and it was an Ez's sale, remember? You checked them out. Not my problem, they don't. Fit your rig, that's on you. An Ez's sale doesn't cover blatant misrepresentation, I retorted, my jaw tight. You explicitly told me they'd fit. You assured me. Yeah, well, end of conversation. Man, he said, a dismissive tone in his voice, consider it a lesson learned. Don't call me again. And then he hung up. Just like that, the line went dead, leaving me standing in my garage, holding a dead phone to my ear, the silence amplifying my fury. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the wheels. My chest felt tight, a burning sensation spreading through me. Not only had he taken my money, but he'd insulted my intelligence, dismissed my valid complaint, and hung up on me. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the disrespect, the blatant disregard for honesty, the smug satisfaction he must have felt knowing he'd gotten away with it. A cold, hard resolve began to settle over me, pushing aside the raw anger. Lesson learned, he said. Oh, Marcus, you have no idea what kind of lesson you're about to receive. This wasn't going to be just a loss. This was going to be a reckoning. I paced my garage, the blood still thrumming in my ears. I thought about smashing the wheels, but that was just pointless destruction, and they were still worth something to someone. No, this had to be smarter, more deliberate. My mind started to churn, moving from raw emotion to calculated thought. The next morning, I was still fuming. I went to work, but my mind wasn't entirely on the broken-down minivan in my bay. Fitzwilliam noticed my quiet intensity. Everything all right, Ethan? He grunted, wiping grease from his hands with a rag. You're quieter than usual, like a cat that just swallowed a canary. I sighed, leaned against a toolbox, and decided to tell him. He listened, his face impassive, as I recounted the whole story from finding the ad to Marcus's dismissive phone call. When I finished, Fitzwilliam just stared at me for a moment. Then grunted, "Marcus Thorne, huh?" he said, a low rumble in his chest. "Figures. That man's got a snake oil salesman's heart. Always should have known better than to trust him." I nodded, feeling the sting of his words. "I know, Fitz. I feel like a complete idiot. Don't you got taken advantage of? Happens to the best of us. What are you going to do about it?" He looked at me, a glimmer of something in his eyes, not pity, but curiosity, who knew me well enough to know I wasn't just going to let this go. "I don't know yet," I admitted. He ripped me off, and he laughed in my face. "That doesn't sit right with me." Fitzwilliam nodded slowly. "Good. Never let someone get away with that. Just make sure you do it smart. Don't do anything you'll regret," his words were. A warning, but also, in their own way, an encouragement. Later that day, I met Sarah at her coffee shop. She saw the storm brewing in my eyes the moment I walked in. "Who broke your favorite wrench?" she asked, handing me a steaming mug of black coffee, no sugar. She knew me too well. I told her everything, the whole humiliating ordeal. As I spoke, her initial amusement turned to anger. She slammed a hand on the counter when I described Marcus hanging up on me. That arrogant jerk. "Ethan, not right, $1,000. That's a huge amount of money." "Tell me about it," I muttered, staring into my coffee. "And the way he just blew me off, like I was nothing." "He thinks he's so clever, doesn't he?" Sarah said, her eyes flashing. "Well, sometimes the clever ones are the easiest to trip up. What are you thinking?" "I don't know," I repeated, but this time it felt less like despair and more like a challenge. "But I'm thinking," my mind kept circling back to Kijiji. The initial ad, his continued attempts to sell the wheels. That was the key. He still had the ad up, meaning he hadn't found another sucker yet. That gave me an idea, a simple one, but potentially effective. That evening, I sat at my old rickety desk, my laptop open. I navigated back to Kijiji, and sure enough, to catch someone else, my fingers hovered over the keyboard. A new email account. That was step one. Something untraceable, completely separate from my usual online presence. I created one, humon84@email.com. Simple, nondescript. Then, I drafted a message to Marcus. I had to play it cool. Act like I was another eager buyer, perhaps even more eager than I had been the first time. I needed to hook him, make him think he had a surefire sale, and I needed to make it sound like I was exactly the kind of person who would fall for his scam, someone who knew just enough to be dangerous, but not enough to be truly informed. "Dude," I typed, drawing out the word for emphasis. I had a set of these. On my old jacked-up Ford, I rolled, "Seriously, epic. I just picked up another one, an '08 F150 actually, and I'm on my way through town tonight. Just passing through, but if you'll hold them for me, I'll toss ya an extra $50 just to make it worth your while. Cash in hand, no haggling." I read it over. It was perfect. A little too enthusiastic, a little too eager, the kind of person who'd be desperate for those specific wheels and wouldn't question anything. The jacked-up Ford eye-rolled bit added a layer of fake experience, making him think I knew about custom trucks but was just looking for a quick, easy purchase. And the extra $50, that was the bait. Marcus was greedy. He wouldn't be able to resist an extra $50 on top of a $1,000 sale, especially if it meant a quick, no-hassle transaction. I hit send, then I waited. It felt like an eternity, but it was probably only a minute or two before my phone buzzed. A text message. It was Marcus. "Hey man, this is about the wheels, right? Just got your email. An extra $50. Huh, that's mighty tempting." I tell you. "What? I feel kind of bad about those other wheels not working out for you. I just got the cash to buy them back. Actually, if you want to drop them off, I'll take them off your hands for what you paid. No hard feelings, right? Then you can grab these new ones, win-win." I stared at the screen, a slow smile spreading across my face. He felt bad. He had the cash to buy them back. He wanted to take them off my hands. This was rich. He wasn't feeling bad at all. He was trying to get his wheels back to sell them to Humon, the eager buyer with the extra $50. He was trying to cover his tracks and make a second quick profit, all while making it seem like he was doing me a favor. His greed had completely overshadowed any sense of suspicion. He thought he was being clever, getting the wheels back from me, making me think he was being honorable, all while planning to fleece Human out of $1,050. I texted him back, "Yeah, that sounds great, Marcus. Seriously, appreciate it. I'll swing by in about an hour. Gotta wrap up some stuff here. See ya then." I drove over to his place, the chrome wheels rattling in the back of the F150, a triumphant symphony in my ears. When I pulled up, Marcus was waiting, fidgeting, clearly eager to get his hands on the wheels. He gave me another one of his fake smiles, this one a little more forced than usual. "Hey man, thanks for coming. Yeah, really sorry about the mix-up with these. Just one of those things, you know?" He gestured vaguely, avoiding eye contact. I just nodded, my face a mask of polite gratitude. "No worries, Marcus. Happens. Appreciate you taking them back." He quickly inspected the wheels, checking for any damage. They were still pristine, just as he'd sold them. He pulled out a thick wad of cash from his pocket, $1,000, exactly what I'd paid him. He counted it out into my hand. "There you go, man. All good. Thanks for being cool about it." He seemed relieved, clearly thinking he'd dodged a bullet and was about to make another quick profit. I pocketed the money, feeling a profound sense of satisfaction. "No problem, Marcus. And hey, I really appreciate you doing this. I'll tell Human you've still got the wheels for him. He's pretty excited about them." Marcus's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of something that might have been surprise, or perhaps just a momentary confusion. "Human? Oh, right, that guy. Yeah. Tell him I'll be waiting." I gave him a final, bland smile. Waiting for a buyer who would never show up, I drove away, a slow, triumphant laugh building in my chest. By the time I was a block away, I was chuckling openly. He thought he was so smart. He thought he was going to make a profit off his deception, but instead, he'd bought his own stolen goods back at full price and was now stuck with them again. The irony was sweet, like a perfectly balanced engine hum. When I got home, the first thing I did was text Sarah, got my money back, and the look on his face was priceless. She replied immediately, "You genius. How did you do it?" I called her and recounted the whole story, from the fake email to the extra $50 bait, to Marcus's desperate text message, right down to his flustered expression when I mentioned Human. She shrieked with laughter, a joyful sound that filled my garage. "Ethan, that's amazing. Oh, I wish I'd seen his face. You got him good." The next day, I made sure to swing by Fitzwilliam's office. I walked in, trying to keep a straight face, and laid the $1,000 on his desk. He looked at the money, then at me, a slow, knowing smile spreading across his gruff features. "So, you got it back, did you?" I nodded, feeling a quiet pride. He bought them back, thinking he was going to sell them to someone else. Some Human who never showed up. Rolling down a hill, Human, huh? Clever. Very clever, Ethan. I told you to be smart. You did good. Real good. He pushed the money back across the desk. "Go on, get yourself a proper jack, and maybe something nice for yourself." I took the money, a warmth spreading through me that wasn't just about the cash. It was about the validation, the feeling that I hadn't let myself be walked over. Marcus Thorne's ad remained on Kijiji for weeks after that. Buyer never showed up. I'd occasionally check, just for the satisfaction of knowing he was still stuck with those damn wheels, still trying to get rid of them. The thought of him pacing, checking his email, wondering where Human was a satisfying balm to my bruised ego. I never heard from Marcus again, not directly anyway. I saw him once, months later, at a local auto parts swap meet. He spotted me across a crowded aisle, and his eyes narrowed, a flash of recognition. Then something else, embarrassment, perhaps, or a lingering frustration. He quickly turned away, disappearing into the crowd. I just smiled. He knew. He knew he'd been played, and that, more than anything, was the real victory. I eventually bought a really good hydraulic jack with that money, and then some. My F150 stayed stock, but it ran like a dream, and every time I worked on it, I remembered the lesson. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't about breaking something, it's about outsmarting the person who tried to break you. It's about turning their greed against them and leaving them to stew in their own foolishness. And that, I found, was a kind of justice all its own.